All right, we're in. It's time for the pre-show. Hi, everybody. If you can see me, we're actually live here. I'm checking to see which camera's on because there's mad cameras in here. This is the pre-show. This is before we get into the bulk of our conversation. You can join us just if you're live on the web and hear us chatting it up a little bit about some things that are in the news. So welcome, everybody. So there's something that I wanted to run by you guys because it just came across. During the day when we're supposed to be doing our prep, of course, we're naturally supposed to be spending half of our time on Twitter because that's where all the action is. And basically, people are saying some really interesting things. And I got a comment from Mohammed Mahdi on Twitter. He's saying, do you think the Middle East uprisings could be emulated more widely in sub-Saharan Africa? I haven't seen much analysis on this question. And I wanted to bring this to get y'all thoughts on this. Because basically, I've been thinking myself, well, all of this is happening in North Africa, but what's going to happen in Sub-Saharan? And Rasha, I particularly want to get your thoughts on this, being Egyptian.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. It's it's a universal phenomenon. As long as people need freedom, the uprisings can happen anywhere. I think Tunisia and Egypt have set quite an inspirational example, and I hope everybody else will follow suit.
Do you think there's a reason why it started in North Africa, or it's yet to? Because there's in Uganda, there's protests against corruption. Yeah. Is there a reason?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
It's just momentum, I guess.
Time.
It was bound to start somewhere. So I'm just happy it started. I don't care where it started.
That's a good point,
right? Well, but I almost feel like I responded to him, and I was like, well, I don't know. I think it's going to be a different kind of movement because, and maybe this is askew in my perspective, but I feel like, there's a ton of bloodshed already happening in Africa, and nobody's paying attention.
Right.
I mean, they're going to invade Libya because some people might be killed. People are asking, well, why didn't you do something in Bahrain? Why didn't you do something in Syria? If you look at the number of people that have died in Congo alone over the last decade, it is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You don't hear any mention of going in there.
Right?
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, so let's say you raise up and you're like, oh, we're going to stand up to Mugabe. Well, why don't we just kill 20,000 of you? Nobody's going to do anything about it.
Derek. Sorry, I'm saying there's on this website, In Depth Africa, I did a quick Google search and it's saying the protesters in Gabon, out of all places, virtually ignored by the global media, were seeking to topple, right here, you see, Ali Bongo, who became president in 2009. And so apparently the uprising was quickly crushed by the army, which is what they're actually trying to do in North Africa as well.
Perhaps if these protesters could just build an oil infrastructure so that the West has an interest
Alexis,
in helping out.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
But they are, aren't they?
I mean, you bring up a good point. So a country like Nigeria, where you've got a very few who control a ton of natural resources in terms of oil that pretty much makes life awful for everyone else.
Right.
Seems like the recipe for a lot of the uprisings we're seeing in the Middle East.
Right. Yeah.
Yet, what?
Yeah.
What of that?
Yeah, so I want to come back to that point. First, I want to just check on our Skype guest. All right, Saul, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. We're just chatting a little bit. We're going to start the show in just a few minutes, so thanks again for joining us. Your connection is really great.
Thanks to you.
But this is the thing, you look at a place like Nigeria and it's like, okay, it's an energy-rich country. There's been a lot of violence in Nigeria historically. There's been all kinds of conflict. But again, it's almost like the eyes of the world. You hear reports about what's happening in the northern part of Nigeria, things like what's gone on in Jos and other places. You don't really see any cameras on the ground. You don't see the evidence. So there's an emotional connection.
It's been going on for decades, arguably, though, in the mainstream media in terms of the way Africa's covered.
Exactly, because imagine if you didn't have Al Jazeera and then subsequently the rest of the world media on the ground in Tahrir Square. Do you think Mubarak would be, retired right now?
He would be celebrating his birthday.
Exactly, and that's why, I saw this tweet and I was like, well, I would love to see some changes happening on the continent, but there would have to be a whole different perspective on how the world covers Africa in order for Africans to feel like if they stand up for their rights, somebody will cover if they're crushed in doing so. Because ain't nobody sending troops to save us. We saw the same. He sent another tweet. Before I'll shut up. But I just this was really striking me because this all happened just while we were getting ready. And he said, I was like, well, I don't know if, it seems like the world turns a blinder eye to killing of Africans. He says that's very true. See Rwanda compared to Libya. It'd be great if you could explore this, A Tale of Two Africas.
It's a good title for a headline or a book or a doc. Well, I know I grew up in Egypt, and I never saw this revolution happening in Tunisia or Egypt. But I did once the parliamentary elections came up, and we talked about this a little bit. Yeah. I realized that something was astray in the sense that there was like a real crackdown, but it kind of went unnoticed by the media. Did you anticipate this revolution?
No, it didn't really go unnoticed by the media, but I think at that point we just realized something was bound to happen because it had got into an all-time low, you know.
What was it?
Ridiculous.
Just unemployment and economy?
Everything, but just the corruption that went on with the elections and the election rigging, and you know, one party winning like 99.9% of the vote, and I mean, it was hilarious, you know. I mean, it was a one-man show all
ludicrous.
The way.
Saul, thanks so much for checking in. We're going to see you again in a little bit. Thank you, Saul.
Well, we're going to be showing some Ugandan videos, hopefully at the top of the show. They came in on that topic.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be very interesting. I was telling somebody, a reporter the other day, that like there's a revolution already happening on the continent. Like I look at Ghana, and where I'm from, and basically, you know, the fastest growing market sectors are IT and financial services. You know, for the last decade now, we've had peaceful transitions of power from one party to another party, and I mean, it's been really amazing. Simple, relatively stable democracy. So part of the revolution that's happening for us is people are starting to feel free. And it's ironic if you look at this map of press freedom that they've got out in the museum, broader museum. Ghana is one of the few, I think one of 4 countries in all of Africa, 50 plus countries, that has true press freedom.
Right.
So obviously something is happening, but I don't know if we're, you know, I'm hoping that this inspires change on the continent, but I just feel nervous. I think back to Rwanda, it was not that long ago. Then you said, oh, never again. Then you look at the Congo, oh, never again. Then you look at Darfur, you know?
Yeah.
Ghana's not in here.
I wonder if maybe now that, well, everyone's talking about Osama and the future of Al-Qaeda, East Africa is still something, Somalia in particular is still a country that we've kind of, I mean, a lot of us saw Black Hawk Down, and that was the extent of our knowledge.
Nobody wants to go back to Somalia.
My God, this country now, it's, I mean, how is it even a functioning state at this point? Oh. You only hear about pirates or nothing but bloodshed in Mogadishu.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And the sad thing is, not to defend the pirates, because what they're doing is really insane, but there's no talk about why. Yeah, why they weren't always pirates in Somalia. Nobody thinks about pirates for the last 100 years. What happened?
Yes. I mean, when you've got young men who are deciding,
not paying attention.
When you've got young men who are deciding, like, what am I going to do?
Hi, I'm Derek Ashong, and you are now in The Stream, a social media community with its own daily TV show. We're bringing you the stories that are ongoing, global, and sourced from social media. Today, enough is enough. Tens of thousands of Mexicans marched to condemn the war on drugs. And why are people in Turkey accusing their government of internet censorship? Joining us on the couch, as always, is our digital producer, Ahmed Shihab El-Din. Also with us today is Rasha Abdulla. She teaches journalism and mass communication at the American University in Cairo. Thank you so much for joining us. You're also the author of The Internet in the Arab World, Egypt and Beyond. Am I correct?
Yes.
Thanks so much for being here with us. We've also got Alexis Ohanian. He's the co-founder and advisor to the social media news website, reddit.com. Welcome, Alexis.
Thank you.
All right, Ahmed, first, before we get into anything else, tell us what people have been saying through Feed the Stream.
Sure. Let's start with a tweet from Rosebell K. She's sending us essentially a video. So both of our feedbacks today are videos. It's a story about Uganda and corruption. We're just going to let this play out, and then we're going to talk to it just a little bit.
I have zero tolerance for corruption. We will declare war on corruption, and it will soon be history. You can trust me. These are your family's roads. When the big people eat the money, they steal your freedom.
So the video goes on to show different issues in Uganda, and we have actual, right here, we have on the Al Jazeera website a profile of one of the opposition leaders, Besigye, And for those of you who want to find out more about this story, we've been tracking it on Twitter. We also have another feature about the actual walk to work protest.
And basically what they're doing is they're like, the price of gas is too high, the price of food is too high. If our people can't drive to work, we'll all walk to work. And then we heard, the thing that jumped out at me about that video before you showed it and told us where it's from, I'm like, that could be in almost any country in Africa. Yeah, and people come in with all these great promises and the corruption is endemic.
They get to the topics about oil and, how the government's stealing the oil or allegedly stealing the oil. And then we also have, as I said, this feature. But let's go to another tweet. This is actually interesting. Speaking of Africa, this is North Africa. Came from Will_MCL. He says, check out our project using poetry and photography to document revolutions. And here he clarifies the reason that he's introducing this to us is because he wants to break down Western Islamophobia and ideas of romanticized revolution. Let's just play it through a little bit right here.
As poets, we see the world in images. See people as snapshot constellations of stories. Beauty and struggle. Triumph and defeat. Like park benches, where I watch old dragons drag on cigarettes and cough up smoke.
So the entire concept of this is they feel as though they want to give a glimpse into the lives of people in Tunisia and Egypt. So they're traveling there and they want to shed light on stories that aren't being told in the mainstream media, which is also what we're trying to do here. So remember, you can share these stories with us to the Stream community. Just tweet us at AJ Stream. The show is really all about us listening to what you are talking about.
I'm Bashir Omran, originally from Tunisia, and I work for Kharabish, and I'm on the stream.
Now, one of the most powerful websites out there right now for having discussions about pretty much anything is Reddit. And Alexis, we're so happy to have you here as the co-founder of Reddit. I know that you're back there advising now. Tell us what Reddit is and how you came up with the idea.
All right. Well, Reddit is pretty much a front page of the web. Steve Huffman and I graduated from UVA in 2005, started to create this website where basically people could come, submit an interesting link, and their peers would vote it up if they like it and vote it down if they didn't. And the end result is this rising and falling front page of new and interesting content online. There are discussions about every one of those links that are voted the exact same way, and it is a very good place to go when you should be working.
Absolutely. Well, I understand that you actually posted something really interesting on Reddit where people are submitting questions to us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. Before appearing on the show, one of these communities on Reddit. So Reddit was started out as this vast front page that covered all kinds of topics. And we realized our users are doing such a good job finding content that we should just let them have more control of the site and create communities of their own. So there are communities Redditors have created from things like world news to marijuana. And one in particular is called I Am A, where you basically come on and say, I am a blank, ask me anything. I am a nurse, ask me anything.
That's awesome.
I am Noam Chomsky, ask me anything. I'm Stephen Colbert, ask me anything. And so I told them that I was appearing on the stream and that the team here at Al Jazeera English wanted to be asked anything. And your folks here have been answering questions for the last hour or so and will continue to do so.
All right. Are there any good questions you want to throw at us?
Well, I've got to censor a few of these, but the top trending one was regarding how much of a
how much of a problem is Osama bin Laden's death really going to cause?
Yes.
Wow.
And various things. The next highest, of course, being, has there been any real talk about bringing the show to American television?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question because there's been a lot of talk about bringing Al Jazeera in general to American television, but I think that there are some challenges, and not to go out on a limb here, but given some of the comments that the Bush administration made about Al Jazeera, which were largely inaccurate, this idea of terror TV or whatever, when you watch it, you see that it's a whole different platform, and I think those perceptions have made companies more less likely to put us on the air.
Right.
Therefore, it's not like official government censorship, but it winds up being a de facto censorship.
Yeah.
And it's actually, it's an interesting model because in the West, the censorship models are very different from like in the Arab world, for example. So we're used to government controlling the media, and if the governments are bad, then the governments are censoring the media.
Right.
In the West, where and I'm almost like mind-bogged when people think that they have free media in the West. They really don't. It's just another system of censorship. It's just another tools to do the same thing. They're just different tools.
Well, I figure when the media companies are some of the biggest contributors to your political parties and whatever kind of company, those companies are going to have some kind of interest in how the politics work. So it doesn't always have to be the government that's determining what voices are heard and what voices are not.
Right.
Yeah, well, we want to go into a story where we're having voices of people that actually are being heard, and they're saying enough bloodshed already. It's a message from tens of thousands of Mexicans who are taking to the streets demanding an end to the so-called war on drugs in their country. Rallies have started across the nation this Thursday and will end with protesters converging in Mexico City on Sunday. In a nutshell, it seems that people in Mexico are absolutely fed up with what they see as this war on drugs that's failed. We've seen a couple of interesting trends. One is with a hashtag called Estado Fallido, which basically means failed state, and people are speculating as to whether Mexico could be a failed state. And then another one is this idea of no más sangre, which is basically no more blood. Basically, around 40,000 people have died since Felipe Calderón, the Mexican president, started this war against the cartels in I think it was 2006. Mm-hmm. And in a nutshell, what's happening right now is a Mexican poet, a well-known poet, lost his son to the violence, and he has inspired a lot of people to take a look at things differently, including this particular march. Ahmed, I think you've got some video from Javier Cecilia.
Yeah, let's just listen in right here. This has been circulating on YouTube. There's many instances of this video. This one has translations.
Cerca de 40,000 muertos que la guerra decretada entre el gobierno y los criminales ha generado, y que las policías y los ejércitos, con tal de no enfrentar el problema, han llamado bajas colaterales o han criminalizado, diciendo que de alguna manera.
It's worth mentioning, just to jump in here, that this is an estimated $50 billion industry in Mexico, and that they're saying that potentially if the drug business was to be lost, it could affect Mexico's economy by 63%.
Well, and so this is part of the thing, because it seems like this is something that is becoming endemic, and people are saying that, well, we need a change. We are lucky to have joining us now from Mexico City, Saul Espino Armendáriz, who is involved in the protest movement. Thank you, Saul, for joining us.
Thanks to you.
So, Saul, we've just understood a little bit about what's happening from Javier Cecilia. Talk to us about what is your role in this particular movement.
Well, I'm participating as a particular citizen, just involved in social media, promoting the national march that you already explained very well. And I'm trying to promote it through Twitter. Also, I created a blog, and together with a partner that lives in Chihuahua, a northern state from Mexico, we are trying to promote this national rally throughout Facebook, Twitter, blogs, etc.
Mm-hmm. And so basically people from around the country are going to be coming together to this march. I'm wondering, what do you think, Rasha? You see this kind of movement. It seems like popular mobilization, but can this make a difference when you're talking about armed cartels?
I don't know about armed cartels, but it did make a difference in Egypt, and I'm pretty happy about that. But it's just I think it's the concept that people have a voice, and they're free to voice their opinions, and that their voices will matter if they go out in large numbers. I think that's the lesson that we learned in Egypt, and it's been inspirational to the people of Egypt. I mean, the Egyptians have changed overnight once they realized that they can actually force change. They can do something with their voices.
Well, I mean, what do you think about this, Alexis? Because I feel like in both Egypt and in Mexico, they're talking about protest the state, right? They're protesting what Calderón's government is doing, not the cartels per se. But let's say the government starts doing something different. How do you think that impacts the cartels?
Well, all right. The one thing that I liked most about this Egyptian revolution was America had so little to do with it, except we were providing the tear gas canisters, so I'm sorry about that.
Thank you for saying that, by the way. Because I make it a point to say that everywhere I go.
Around the world.
Thank you for saying that.
And so I'm sorry that's the only contribution we made, but that makes me very happy, though, because this was a revolution that it didn't have anything to do with us. Yes. It had nothing to do with America, and we oftentimes like to feel like we have to be the ones.
Right. Well, I'm interested, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Whereas in Mexico, there is blood on the hands of us as a country for what we've done. And so, I mean, the war on drugs, it started with these cute DARE campaigns that I remember growing up with in middle school, but it has been nothing but awful, not only for Americans here who are incarcerated for minor possession charges, but especially for Mexico and all of the lives that have been lost.
This is what I wanted to get at. So, Alexis raised a really good point that the U.S. is involved. How do Mexicans see the role of the United States? From our research, we've seen that a significant amount, basically that the United States is the largest market for drugs coming from Mexico, and that you have significant amount of weapons coming into Mexico from the U.S. How do people on the ground see this?
Yes, of course, we see the U.S. responsibility, and we also know that the U.S. government supports Felipe Calderón's wars. And most of us think that you cannot solve violence with more violence, and that there are more intelligent ways to fight the drug problem. Many of us think that it should be seen as a health issue, not a security issue, or not only as a security issue, and that it cannot be solved just taking the army on the streets like Calderón has done since 5 years ago.
So one question I want to put to you then, in terms of the U.S. role, do you think that the legalization of drugs or some drugs might help solve this problem? And before you answer that, I'm just going to talk us through, as we saw in the revolutions in the Arab world, people around the world, protested in solidarity with Arabs. And we see this is happening again with what's going on in Mexico. We have this action called Empty Envelope Action, where, as it says right here, you can see one Facebook page says in Paris they're going to be meeting at May 8th at the Place du Trocadero, and they're going to be handing out flyers. Now the idea is, let me just show you this website right here. It says that they're essentially going to be sending empty envelopes to the address of Calderón, the president of Mexico, with the return sender is going to be based out of this Google database where they're going to be choosing names of people who have been killed in the drug war, and they're going to be sending, people around the world are going to be sending Calderón empty envelopes. Are you aware of that?
Yes, we are aware of this, we call the poetic action from Paris, and we are promoting also this kind of protest. And what we want is also that, like Javier Sicilia said before, that every single man, every single girl, boy that has been killed, these 40,000 you have said before, that their name should be remembered. So Javier Sicilia proposed that we put their names in the plazas, the downtowns of all the cities in Mexico, and this is another proposal to remember their names, to say that there are not collateral damages that, like Felipe Calderón has said, there are not collateral damages of this war. They are people who have died in a nonsense violence.
Now, so I want to talk a little bit, just get your insights on the roots of what's happening, because we understand that the Mexican economy has had a number of different shocks to the system. In the United States, people are talking about the reasons. Many Mexicans are emigrating. Some economists have speculated about whether programs like NAFTA have undermined Mexican agriculture, potentially leaving a political vacuum and a military vacuum, which the cartels have stepped into. Do you have any thoughts on this idea that there may be broader economic factors at play?
Well, of course. It's like I said before, you cannot take the drug problem just as a security problem. It is an economical problem also. It doesn't matter if you arrest a drug dealer, because another one will come to substitute him. In the meantime, there are Mexican poor people willing to give their life for a few money. Then the drug problem and all the violence related to it will not be solved.
Saul, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us this information and insight into what's happening there. We hope that we will be able to talk to you again and learn more as this all continues.
Okay, you're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Good luck. Always looking for your take on these same stories, so please remember that you can text us at the number on the screen right now. And remember, please include your name so we can make sure we know who we're talking to.
اسمي حيدر حمزوز، أنا من العراق، أنا جزء من مؤسس موقع شوارع عراقية، أنا جزء من ستريم.
If you're in Turkey and you want to look up the website homemadecookies.com, chances are that webpage will be blocked. That's because words such as homemade are among nearly 140 terms that have been banned from Turkish internet domain names. But that's not all. After August 22nd, Turks will be facing even more restrictions when they surf the net. Apparently, Turkey is cracking down on how people are able to communicate, and it seems that there's this entire resurrection of the idea of censorship in Turkey. This is an image that we found, somebody tweeted out from Turkey. On my screen, as you can see, it shows somebody whose eyes and mouth have all been covered. We're lucky that we have joining us now via Skype Arda Kutsal. He is the author of the most popular Turkish Web 2.0 blog called Webratsi, and he lives in Istanbul. Thank you, Arda, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Arda, first of all, we've been looking a little bit into the background of this story, and we understand that there's something like 12,000 sites that are already banned in Turkey. What is new about the internet censorship that you're seeing now than any censorship that might have preceded it?
We had many websites actually banned in Turkey before, including YouTube, but it's unbanned now. But this new thing is, there's a new regulation titled Procedures and Principles Regarding the Safe Use of the Internet, which brings 4 compulsory filtering options to Turkey's internet users, who will have to pick one of them. And the filters are like family, child, domestic, which means only the websites from Turkey, and standard. And every internet user must choose one of these filters. So it's more like a firewall to the Turkish internet, even if the authorities say if you choose a standard filter, then nothing will change. You'll still have the same internet and you'll still keep using the same way. But still, there's going to be a filter. So there will be options, and every single user must choose one. This is the new thing, and all reactivity from the users is because of this.
Wow. Now, Rasha, when we look at Turkey, Turkey's often held up as an example of forward progress economically, culturally in the Middle East. This seems like it could be a retrenchment.
Yeah, not on the internet front, though. It's a mess. I mean, it's a shame, really, that governments do that around the world. And, you know, I might as well just remind the Turkish leaders that the last thing Mubarak did before he was ousted was to block the internet in Egypt. You know?
Absolutely.
I mean, but, you know, there comes a point where people just say, you know, we're not going to take this because, you know, we're adults. I mean, this is. I mean, I was here in basically for World Press Freedom Day, which, you know, occurred in this building that we're at. And that's what we root for. I mean, this is a universal human right, you know, the right of free expression, the right to access to information. You can't just say, well, you know what, this website is bad for you, so I'm not going to let you get in there. You know, who's to decide that? And why are governments treating us like we're all children?
Well, let me, Alexis, let me pose to you the flip side of this. So maybe this government is saying, well, the internet, you know, there are a lot of websites that are coming from places all around the world that may have content that you find objectionable in a certain culture. I mean, do they not have a right to have some idea of how they would like their community to interface with what's online?
They have the right to have the idea. They just don't have the right to do it. At least, all right, now I'm coming at this from a very biased perspective, but it's so frustrating because even with things like Article 301 in the Turkish Penal Code that makes it illegal to insult the Turkish state, that would make my life as an American really difficult. It would make so many comedians' jobs much harder in the U.S. because we take great pride in the ability to be able to have that freedom of speech, whether it's in real life or whether it's on the internet. And it's just a shame to see that step closer towards a country like Iran or China that have made, you know, legacies out of repressing free speech.
What are people saying online?
Yeah, let's just throw this question to you. Mitt Willie is asking us, what can we say about the people who support the ban? What are they hoping this will achieve? And one tweet that came in of someone who seems to be supporting it right here, Better No Buy, says, I think that the Turkish people have a right to be protected by their government, and the people need that trust. What do you think?
Actually, I don't really think in that way because adults, for example, people older than 18, I think they can choose which websites to enter or which websites to check. I think the governments, this is not a government's business, I believe. People can choose which is best for them.
And wait, to that point, so what is the response that's happening on the ground? I mean, we heard that a website that is set up on Facebook, a Facebook page, has got over 200,000 followers working against this issue.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, on Facebook, there's a page now called İnternetime Dokunma, which means don't touch my internet. And there will be couple of different campaigns. People will be meeting in Taksim Square, which is the middle of Istanbul, and there are different dates for that, and one of the biggest one is this one, this campaign, İnternetime Dokunma, don't touch my internet, and on Facebook it says now over 400,000 people will be attending, it says.
Wow.
And yeah, people are really reactive to this.
Ahmed, go ahead.
I just want to quickly share some of the words that are being discussed. Right here on the screen, you can see that are going to be, there's about, I think, 138 words, so to speak, that are going to be banned. One of them, pik in English, means bastard in Turkish, and so therefore it's one of the words that are banned. And even the word forbidden is banned. You know, words such as gay are banned, but then there's also words like hot or free. So even the word free and forbidden, and you see one user comment on this article in a local Turkish daily is saying, kind of taking a stab at this, saying, I forbidden clearly, as you can see down here, minor Turkey. So it's using these forbidden words to highlight the kind of ridicule of this.
That's really symbolic. I mean, to ban the word free is, I mean, come on, for God's sakes. And just to answer to the tweet that you got, if I may, I mean, yes, people have the right to be protected, but if you want to protect yourself or your neighbor or your kids, you shouldn't enforce that on the rest of the country. Yeah. So, I mean, just provide filtering systems which are available on the market and very cheap, and a lot of governments provide them for free, actually, and let the people filter for themselves, but don't force me to be filtered just because you want to be filtered.
Arda, what did you wanted to jump in on that?
Yeah, actually, those keywords, 138 keywords, that was another thing, actually. It was a warning set to internet service providers, actually hosting companies, and those 138 keywords were forbidden to be used on domain names. And that regulation was sent to some hosting companies, but afterwards, the authority, which is Information Technologies and Communications Authority, which is BTK in Turkey, they said this warning was just sent for information. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to block websites containing those keywords. We just sent this because usually this banned websites contain these keywords. So first of all, they said don't give service to these to the domain names which includes these keywords. But afterwards, they changed their saying and said, "Okay, no problem. We didn't want to mean that."
Arda, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're going to continue this conversation in the post show because it's really interesting, and I want to learn more about the fact that they actually apparently have banned YouTube as well, and I want to get your insights from that. If you want to join us and learn more, you've got to get back with us online at stream.aljazeera.com. Thank you so much, Alexis and Rasha. We'll all be here during the post show. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. All right, so for our online viewers, this is the post show. Every day after we talk about these topics on television, we take some time here with our web community to get deeper into the issue. So definitely listen to the conversation, but tweet us at AJStream. We'll get some of your comments involved as well. Arda, I think, is still with us, hopefully, in Turkey, and we've also got Saul. So let's just have a conversation about how this stuff impacts us all globally. I mean, Alexis, I would love for you to jump in here. You know, governments are apparently really concerned about what people are saying online. But looking at what's happening around the world, aren't they justified?
No. I mean, well, here's the thing. And someone very long ago said this much better than I did. But governments should be a little bit afraid of their citizens. I think a properly functioning democracy is one where you don't have leaders who are that confident in tomorrow, who are obviously comfortable at the success of the state, but who are very aware that they work for their citizens. And here's the best part. China has tried so hard. They've led the way with their great firewall, and I'm proud to say that Reddit is one of those websites that is not available behind the great firewall. Right. But we have Redditors in China. Now, how could that be possible? I thought the Chinese government blocked it. Well, people are far more resourceful than governments like to give them credit for. And so they always find a way, whether it's through VPNs, whether it's through sites like Tor. It's not that hard to get around these things. And yes, the average user maybe needs some hand-holding from his or her son or daughter, but we'll always find
I just wanted to get Saul back in here because, Saul, so you're living in a country, I mean, from my understanding, Mexico has relatively decent internet freedoms, but you are finding some real serious problems on the ground. Is it possible that a lot of these discussions of internet freedom are more cosmetic when people are dealing with such things as like the ability to be safe and to live? Or do you think that there's a correlation here?
Well, I think freedom is freedom everywhere. In the web, in the reality, it's just freedom. And, well, of course, Mexico is not like an European country. We, by Twitter, we not reach more than the half of the population here. So the freedom in the web is important, yes, but right now we are dealing with violence and with 40,000 deaths. So there are priorities, probably.
So I just want to follow up with a question that came in from our audience, from Sink Deep. I think you touched on this a little, but if you could clarify, he says there are more intelligent ways to fight the drug problem, should be a health issue, not only a security issue. So can you talk a little bit about the health aspect? Because it's important.
Yes, you have mentioned it before. It goes through the discussion of the legalization of the drugs, to treat them just like any other drug, like the alcohol, like the tobacco. I mean, also in the strategic for fighting the drug cartels, there are more intelligent ways, like dealing financially with them. I mean, we just heard a few weeks ago about a North American bank that washed the dirty money from the Mexican drug cartels. So cutting their funds, their financial funds, is a more intelligent and less violent way to deal with the drug cartels.
You know, it's so interesting that you mentioned that, Sal. I was listening to a show, actually it was a Riz Khan show from a year ago, and there was a professor, a Mexican professor, who was making the same argument, that you deal with the financial underpinnings rather than the military thing. But the reality is, when you start ramping up military forces, there's money in that too. I mean, maybe there are countervailing priorities here. What do you think, Rasha?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a complicated issue because it has to do with drugs. You know, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, well, you know, let's all have drugs available in our hands. It's it's kind of hard to make that statement. But again, I mean, to me, it's about hearing what the people want and what the people think is best for themselves and their countries. But I think what should happen is probably, you know, like just to start a healthy discussion on that and see what options are available to fight the problem, you know, to achieve, you know, an outcome by which there is no violence, but there is also, you know, no drugs.
I actually want to bring up Turkey in a sec, but before that, you know, Felipe Calderón, the former Mexican president, actually came out in 2009 along with former Mexican President Carrillo, also former president of Colombia, Gaviria, and a former president of Brazil, I think it was Cardoso, and they all said you need to legalize at least marijuana. I don't want to table that, but I do want to bring up another thing that we learned. You know, Arda, we were told by a scholar who joined us here a few weeks ago, Anna-Louise Sussman, that prostitution is legal in Turkey. Is this true? And if so, how is it that prostitution can be legal, but they're cracking down on pornography and you know, salaciousness online, and yet you can have vice in real life?
Yeah, that's true. Prostitution is legal in Turkey, and it's just a normal thing. And also, but the thing is, pornography is illegal. And this is the discussion actually kept going on the internet for the last couple of days. And this is weird.
It seems that there's like some sort of I don't want to use the word schizophrenic, but you know, Turkey in a lot of ways geographically is between two parts of the world, you know, the West and the East. And even Istanbul, there's talks recently of dividing the city because of just how big it is and it's sprawling. But I guess what I'm getting at is we see that there are threats from you know, websites, popular websites in Turkey, to appeal this decision and to appeal it to the European Union. Are you aware of any of this?
I couldn't really catch the question.
Just the fact that certain people in Turkey are really upset by this potential filtering and censoring the internet, that they are going to go to the European Union to appeal the law.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're right. I can't really say anything about it. We just kept hearing the same discussion has been going on here. We are a country which is planning to get into European Union, and we are still talking about this kind of bans and everything. By the way, I want to add one quick note as well. Today, the authority, Information Technologies and Communications Authority, had a press conference, and they said like this it's nothing to do with ban, it's nothing to do with internet censorship. If a user chooses standard filtering, then they're not going to be filtered anyway, so they're going to be using internet in the same way which they are doing now. But obviously, internet users, they didn't really believe this saying, because the thing is, when you get into a filtering, if as a hardware and also software, there's no way that you can get out of it. So the problem is not just banning websites, which we already experienced it before. Mm-hmm. The problem is being in that filtering. So when we are talking about being a part of European Union and being in the process of entering this society, then it's quite funny talking about censorship or filtering the internet or creating firewalls.
Absolutely. I mean, Alexis, like, it seems to me there's lots of software out there that enables somebody to basically protect websites if they're concerned about what their children would see.
Yes.
Why would a government think they need to get involved?
Some governments want to be very, very much in control of what their people are thinking and reading. And I was actually a little disappointed by the list, because I was expecting more controversial things like Kurds or Armenians or genocide or stuff like that. But no, like nubile? Really? Come on, guys. Like, try a little harder.
I saw marriage was on the list as well. You know, before we go, I wanted to see if there are any other questions that came up through Reddit that people had for us. Maybe we can try to answer a couple more before we go. And who knows, maybe some of them might be applicable to our guests as well.
All right. It's really just a question of the wireless connection. Oh, this is an interesting one. How does the Arab Street view the average American tourist?
Wow. I'd love to send that to Rasha.
And here's a good quote: not just the random fat couch potato, but the one who's actually interested in learning and comes there to be educated.
Well, it's important because in Egypt, tourism plays such a big role
in the economy.
Obviously,
so, Rasha, what's up?
Yeah,
Do they like potatoes?
Tourists have always been welcome in Egypt. I don't think there's been any question about that, and particularly the non-couch potato types. Because I mean, people in the Arab world in general, but especially in Egypt, you know, we love it when somebody is interested in our culture and actually wants to learn something about it. And I mean, you know, I'm not just saying that because I'm Egyptian, but of course I am Egyptian and I love it and I'm very biased. Come to Egypt. Egypt is great. So, you know, I mean, it's there's plenty to see, there's plenty to do, there's plenty to learn, you know, about just the outside world.
You know, this tourism thing is a big deal because, Saul, we understand it's affecting Mexico a lot, that people are now afraid to go to Mexico. Is that having an impact on the economy there? How do Mexicans feel about the perception of the state by others?
Yes, of course. Tourists are afraid, but also the government is afraid. It's like you said before, a few moments ago. Yes, governments are afraid. We just saw Felipe Calderón, our president, yesterday, talking through national TV. And personally, I saw a president full of fear. He's taking this protest like a personal thing. He doesn't understand that we are protesting against the violence and all corrupted government, not only the federal government that he heads. And yes, they are sometimes more worried about the loss of tourists, of the economic losses, than the human losses. So yes, it is affecting the Mexican economy, but again, there are priorities. 40,000 is enough, I think.
I'm just going to quickly jump in with this fact that we see in USA Today. Apparently, the U.S. State Department has issued a travel warning to Mexico, and this was issued before the 183 bodies were discovered in the northeastern state. Wow. So even though the government seems to be trying to put out this message of, no, don't worry, it's safe, as we can see right here, you know, there's PR machine is at work saying that it's safe, it seems as though the U.S. government doesn't think so.
Wow, it's like there's some really interesting dynamics here. I want to thank you, Arda, so much for joining us all the way from Istanbul. Saul, thank you for joining us from Mexico City. Alexis and Rasha being right here For our people, our viewers who are online, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow on television and right here. Check us out at stream.aljazeera.com. Actually, not tomorrow. We'll see you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back.